I've clicked onto the Global Tropical Overview for April the 7th, 2024. As is always the case in these videos, the weather exposure are mine alone, and in making decisions ahead of any tropical cyclones, look to your local weather office, local emergency management, and local tropical cyclone warning center. So we have one system active across the tropics today, and this is Tropical Cyclone Olga here off the coastline of Western Australia. And immediately, don't worry, this system is not going to be coming ashore into Western Australia. It will be turning out to sea before it does so, but this is going to be a pretty storm over the course of the day today, as it is rapidly intensifying and has been for the past several hours, and we may get a fairly strong peak out of this before wind shear begins to increase. But you can see one reason why the system may start to weaken. We have a lot of, out here west of Australia, a lot of clouds being pushed off towards the south and east. This is a part of a big area of lots of westerly flow coming across this region. It is helping the storm right now. You can see there's upper level cirrus clouds streaming away from the storm in a pretty healthy fashion. But eventually that flow is going to be cutting across the storm. It's going to be shearing it. And we're not going to be seeing the system intensify anymore. Once that happens, it's going to be weakening. Now, there may be some potential for some increased shower and thunderstorm activity along the coastline as that does occur, as the system will be getting sheared once again from the northwest. So all the thunderstorms are going to be pushed off towards the south and east, and there may be some potential, like I said, for increased rainfall along the portions of the coastline of Western Australia. But in terms of anything significant, really the most significant impact here is going to be surf impacts along the immediate coastline, and significant impacts from the storm otherwise are not anticipated. But while it's intensifying, just from a meteorological standpoint, we can admire the dynamics going on in the center of the storm. This is the visible satellite imagery close-up view as the sun rises over the region, and you can see these deep thunderstorms. You can see these very tall storms on the western side wrapping around that eye, and it's trying to clear it out. Now, it is facing a little bit of shear. It has had some trouble wrapping convection onto the eastern side, maybe an indication of a little bit of northerly shear. There is some indication, if we look at the water vapor imagery, of maybe some shear from the north and northeast, and that may be the reason why the storm has struggled a bit to get convection to wrap onto the eastern side. But at times it has also been successful. As you can see, this convection that was once, or that is on the western side now, was once on the eastern side. It completely wrapped around through the south side. And if we look on the colored infrared, you can see that it is looking pretty healthy, maybe a little thin here to the south side. But if it gets a really good burst of convection going here and gets it fully wrapped around and sustaining on the south side and manages to clear out that eye, we could be looking at a very strong peak here. And this could be category 4 on the Australian scale. It might be getting close to that already. But looks like a very strong storm peak incoming just with the satellite. But here's the water vapor again, just to show you the expansive outflow to the south ahead of all the westerly flow across this region. You can also see another detrimental impact that will eventually impact it. If you look over here west of the storm, got a lot of green colors, which is moist air in the upper levels of the troposphere, but this indicates that there's more dry air below that layer. So towards the mid layer and towards the surface of the ocean, we're not really seeing a lot of moisture. And when the shear kicks in from this large stream of westerly flow, it's going to try and push all of that into the center. And if it gets a real healthy burst of this dry air coming into the center, that will certainly cause significant harm to the inner core structure. But as of right now, the system is looking pretty healthy. And at least for the next, say, maybe 12 hours, we'll likely see this system continue to intensify and reach its peak intensity. Here's the GFS 200 millibar flow chart. This is up to 48 hours, and you can see all this westerly flow that I was just showing you on water vapor coming across. And we're very lucky that the low-level steering is not in line with this, having the storm come into Australia. Otherwise, this could be a pretty bad scenario. You could have perhaps a storm in a favorable position relative to all this flow here, enhanced flow, and that could be maybe a favorable jet interaction for the storm as it comes towards Australia. But we're fortunate here that below, towards the surface, we have a big area of high pressure. And this is going to try and force the storm away from the coastline. And you've got competing flows. This is trying to push it towards the south and west. The flow aloft is trying to push it towards the south and east. So you get significant wind shear. It causes the storm to weaken. And as the thunderstorms weaken and the storm weakens, it does not feel the flow aloft in the upper layers of the troposphere as much. And this flow from this area of high pressure becomes more dominant, and that's why the storm is going to be going out to sea and not coming ashore. But very impressive storm right now, but you can see the impact of the very unfavorable environment that's going to be coming in as we get into Monday or Tuesday. All this dry air that I showed you off towards the west, trying to get entrained into the storm, and a very strong shear, 42 knots of shear. That is detrimental to pretty any much tropical cyclone. There have only been a couple storms that have managed to survive in shear like that, and they've just barely managed to do it. And I don't think the system's going to be able to do it. But either way, a strong storm like it right now cannot sustain itself in a shear like this, especially with all of that strong flow. You can see just a very deep layer shear from that aloft wind going from the west. And again, could cause some increased showers and thunderstorm activity along the coast, but in general, no significant impact from this and no landfall anticipated. And you can see that here on the Bureau of Meteorology forecast. I'll zoom into this so you can see it better. With the forecast, following what I showed you on the model guidance, they're having it staying offshore, well away from the coastline, and all the significant wind fields as well staying away from the coastline. Now, in terms of any other tropical activity that we have going on, we don't really have any other significant areas of interest. We don't have any imminent storms that are going to be forming here apart from Olga. But you can see across the world, this is the map of showing rising air and sinking air, the greens being rising air, which is favorable for storms. It's what helped Olga form, and red being sinking or dry air, not favorable for thunderstorms and therefore not favorable for tropical cyclones. But you can see we have this area sustaining over Indonesia of rising air, and guidance is trying to suggest that we may get some increased tropical activity furthermore here in Australia and maybe into the South Pacific as this area persists over the next week. And there may be some low potential for something to try and spin up here near Madagascar, though guidance seems much more keen on something forming near Indonesia, more so than Madagascar. But we'll keep an eye on it. But as of right now, the tropics are fairly quiet. More so what you'd come to expect as you get into April, as we're getting towards the end of cyclone season. You can still have significant activity in April, but we're starting to get to that transition period between the southern hemisphere cyclone seasons and we get towards northern hemisphere hurricane seasons in the North Atlantic and the East Pacific. But I'll keep you all updated on any storms that do form across really the entire world as we go throughout the next week. But that's all that I've got for today. Thanks for watching.